How I went from ugly to now being a signed model. My story in this life has been eventful, albeit been quite short so far. I haven't lived a long life by any means, but the things that I've seen have allowed me to not only be able to completely transform my life, but I've also transformed every single life of the people who I work one-to-one with. And how is this possible? So, I'm going to begin with where I started off. A few years ago, I remember what it was like to see people's facial expressions when seeing my face. The look of basically contempt and disgust when looking at my face. Can I blame them for it? No, this is how people are. The only difference is that I didn't take blame and put it on them. I didn't just decide that it's their fault, not on me. I took responsibility for where I was. I took action. The action that I took led me to where I am now. So, what was this action and what can you learn from it? Well, this action was 2 years of me studying what created an attractive face, what forms the basis of physical attraction, and then understanding how naturally I can maximize it? What pathways naturally can be optimized to allow bone remodeling to take place, to allow one's appearance to be maximized, to reach close enough to that genetic potential? So, what can you do about this? You need to understand that allowing your bones to be primed in a position where they can remodel is of number one utmost importance. It doesn't matter how old you are. You can be 20, you can be 50. I have worked with literally it all. Not only that, I have transformed it all. Because bones are always remodeling. By virtue of you being alive, your bones are also alive. And as a consequence, they can, and if you do the correct things that I'm going to outline, they will be remodeled. So how? So how are you going to do this? Well, priming them is going to come down to giving them particular nutrients. So I've talked about the importance of vitamin K2, in particular the MK9 variant, which is a very long chain. It's going to allow bone to be a lot more capable to remodel since it has a higher bone affinity compared to other types of vitamin K2. You need to consume particular types of cheese, really fermented types of cheese. For example, Gouda cheese. I've spoken about this. But next, beyond that, you also need to understand that there are some vital minerals that are going to accelerate and expedite the process of bone remodeling. Before we even get into what you're going to do to look better, to do what I done with my journey. And one of these examples is ensuring that you have enough electrolytes in your body. Electrolytes are what allow your appearance to actually remodel. You want the skin to look better on your face. So the collagen needs to be synthesized. Okay, well, what do you need for collagen synthesis? Silicon. Silicon is what forms the bone matrix and the collagen matrix. It's what allows your skin to be properly elastic. As you age, a reduction in dietary silicon is what causes the skin to sag, is what causes bone material to then be reabsorbed by the blood, and it causes a look of just age, a look of sinking. We do not want the face to collapse inwards. So, food with orthosalicylic acid. That's going to be crucial. Next, food that contains manganese. Manganese is going to accelerate the bone remodeling process, or what allows bones to properly remodel. So, these are just some examples, but electrolytes, ions, these minerals, trace minerals, they're going to play such a crucial role. And until you're consuming food that contains each and every one of them, you're not going to prime your bone to be in a position where they can improve. It took me years, thousands of hours to learn this. And I'm telling you so you can actually apply it next. How are you going to distribute force to actually allow this to happen? Well, we're going to be discussing some more soft features. Let's talk about your nose, for example. Let's talk about how the skin above your cheekbone is sitting so you can have a hollow contour. Well, you need to make sure that the skin is not too thick, therefore blood is properly flowing. How are we going to do that? Well, we need to make sure that the blood vessels are properly dilated, don't we? If the blood vessels are always constricted, then nutrients are not going to be able to flow to where you want it to be. Nutrients are not going to be able to flow to the skin, to the bone, etc. What's going to increase the radius of the blood vessel? Well, things that are vasodilators, L-arginine, increasing the nasal nitric oxide, and by extension, breathing deep to allow more nitric oxide to be siphoned by the air that you're breathing is what forces your blood to be able to dilate more. That's going to accelerate the process that I'm teaching you about next. You need to obviously understand the process of active tongue pressurization. And this is the single transformational change that I made with my habits. So I'm going to teach you exactly what you're going to do. With your tongue, unhinge your jaw. Now put the tongue on the roof of the mouth. Suction it. Key difference here, I'm teaching you to suction. I usually don't. This is just so you get an intuitive understanding. Let's do this together. Then pull it down, and I want you to hear that sound. I want you to hear that sound so you can recognize the force that you need to pull downwards to release the suction. Let's look at it again. Now, the same force that you're pulling down, you're going to push upwards. And in particular, you're going to push upwards at the hollowest point, the point that is the most concave on the palate. So if the palate looks like this, you're going to push here with the same amount of force. Let's do that together. Next, you're also going to simultaneously combine this with pressurizing 1 centimeter behind this. So instead of the hollowest point, behind the hollowest point. That is going to allow the bone in the roof of the mouth to be forced to remodel. Remember, from what I've just told you, your bones are going to be in a position where they can remodel. Now, they're going to remodel. That's the difference between having them in a position where they can remodel to forcing them to remodel in a manner that maximizes your appearance. I didn't just magically change my bone structure overnight. I took action. So if you don't actually apply what I'm teaching you here, well, at the end of the day, you're not actually going to see the results that you could be seeing. You're not going to see the improvements that you want, and you're not going to be where you want to be eventually. You have one life. I say this time and time again. You have one opportunity in this life. So make this happen. The other side to life is going to be you follow what I say. You every single day for as long as you can without failure, continue the process of consuming food to fuel the body so it can remodel properly. And then you use the tongue and the facial muscles to properly generate enough force to go upwards, to keep the tongue pressurized and to keep it stable there. Obviously, there's going to be times when it gets uncomfortable, when it gets like you can't pressurize more, when it feels like your tongue's getting way too incapable of generating more force. Well, guess what? The more that you do this, the more experience you have, the more capable you're going to be of seeing change, of delivering force, and as a consequence of being where you want to be. It's not easy to be where you want to be, but by consequence of you watching up to this point, I know that you, to a certain degree, have the capacity to make it happen. If you truly want to make this happen and learn more, I have an advanced YouTube channel. You can watch videos on that which go more in depth, and that will take you to the next steps. I'll see you in the next video.